I think I have more questions every day than I have answers every single day. And I really enjoyed the insight, and I read his piece that is up at Fox News, and he issued a statement to this. Fred Fleitz is the president and CEO of the Center for Security Policy and former NSC chief of staff and analyst for CIA and House Intel Communications staff member. And he also worked with John Bolton, and he has provided some very interesting insight on something that really has created so many questions. Fred, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Dana, good to be here.
Of course. So you were discussing, and I like what you had said, what you wrote. You said if a manuscript of this sensitivity was to be published at all, this should happen after the election, not in the spring of 2020, that you didn't understand the need for a former national security advisor to publish a tell-all book like this. What happened? What do you make of some of the remarks by some members of Congress who say, well, this is just John Bolton's sour graping? That seems almost too reductive. What is your take on this?
Well, I hate to see Republicans throwing mud at each other. John Bolton's a principled man. He has a message he wants to get out there. I've just counseled him to postpone publishing this book until after the 2020 election. That's what Bob Gates did. He resigned in 2011 as Secretary of Defense, but he didn't publish his book on his time in the Obama administration until 2014 because he didn't want to use his internal knowledge of the Obama White House and the NSC to affect the election. He criticized Joe Biden and his incompetence and the incompetence of the Obama NSC. It was pretty serious criticism, but he didn't think it was appropriate to publish it. I think that's a precedent that John Bolton should follow.
Yes, a precedent he should follow. And now all of these questions that have come up from it, I can't imagine, as long as the White House apparently had this manuscript in hand, that the president of the United States would go out, or the administration would say something that would contradict that, knowing that the manuscript at least was in their possession. I mean, that seems like flirting with danger right there. So the president was asked about this, the White House anyway, and some of the stuff that's coming out is that he's backstabbing or he's just disgruntled somehow. And like you, that really contrasts with everything that I've learned and have known about John Bolton. I mean, he was a Goldwater guy. He worked with Reagan. I mean, he's always been a staunch conservative. But people can change, and I just hate the speculation. So with this, do you think that this was his design? Do you think that this was maybe perhaps his publisher? What ultimately, if it's not his character, then what's to credit for this?
Well, I take Bolton and his team at their word that they didn't leak this manuscript. I am very troubled at reports that came out yesterday from the NBC News that the one copy the Bolton team delivered to the NSC in December, that multiple copies were made and were circulating around the NSC. Now, I think the Bolton team made a mistake bringing something so politically sensitive to the NSC for clearance in the middle of an impeachment hearing, because we all know the NSC leaks like a sieve. And if these reports are right, that there were many copies of this circulating around the NSC, it was only a matter of time before it came upon some bureaucrat who couldn't resist the temptation to leak it. If that's true, heads should roll in the NSC. They have to protect material like this so the president won't suffer, these unnecessary political problems.
Yeah. What do you make of the reports that, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, his brother, apparently, and I've seen some of the stories that are alleging this, that his brother was the individual at NSC responsible for reviewing this material and determining whether or not it can be cleared. What do you make of that? Do you think is that accurate? Is this just irresponsible speculation? What's your response?
Yevgeny Vindman is an attorney within the NSC. I think it's uninformed speculation that he was responsible for clearing this manuscript. I'll tell you, I worked with him when I was in the NSC. He seemed very professional, and I don't think he should be accused of leaking something without evidence. I liked him. I just don't think he would do that.
Right. So this could be, ultimately what it's kind of sounding like is maybe perhaps it's just inspired because of serious policy differences maybe between the administration and Bolton.
Well, I was so happy when John Bolton joined the NSC. I'm sure you were too. It seemed to be such a great victory for the conservative movement. And he and the president worked together well for most of his time there. But eventually they had a falling out over policy differences. And this happens. This happens when senior advisors to a president, they don't see eye to eye. And when that happens, the advisor moves on. That's what happened here.
Yeah. Well, and it's difficult in an era of absolute binary tribalism with politics that all of the nuance is absent. And I feel like it's absent from this discussion too, because it's all, no matter whom you listen to, whoever you're listening to, it's either, well, because John Bolton is a failed neocon who is now part of deep state, which seems, I'm a little bit incredulous towards that claim, knowing his history, or it's, oh, well, John Bolton is doing the United States of America service, and he's telling everyone on this tyrant Trump. I mean, obviously it can't be both, but it could also be neither.
How could John Bolton be part of the deep state? The government careers hate him with a purple passion. He was so effective at the NSC and the State Department because he knew the bureaucracy and he ran rings around them. I just don't understand how people can say something like that. It's just completely inaccurate.
Yeah,
he's a master at working the bureaucracy, but working for conservatives. And is it true he got into fights at the NSC? You're darn right it is. And the reason he did that is because the rest of the government, especially at state, is staffed by holdovers and Obama people, and this led to a lot of conflict. And I think those fights were justified. If state was staffed with Trump people, the situation would be very different. And John had to take a difficult stand against these characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he did. And he was hated by some of those very individuals that now he's being accused of being part and parcel to. Now, all of this, of course, is predicated upon the theory that the New York Times and Washington Post are being accurate in what they're telling us, because nobody has actually, Fred, nobody's read this manuscript. And really, until, Bolton comes out and says, no, I didn't write it. It's, everyone's just kind of speculating, which is good promo for the book. The publisher may be happy about that. Bolton may not be so much, but there have been so many of these bombshells that have been presented like this, Fred, but then these same publications have had to walk them back. We've chronicled every single one on this show. Could this be another one of those examples?
It really could be, because the New York Times ran a story on a book that its reporters didn't get to read. And they they cited anonymous sources. If this was a work criticizing a liberal politician, they wouldn't have run the story. But because it's critical of President Trump, they'll run anything, no matter how poorly sourced it is. Some of these things that are attributed to Bolton, I'm pretty sure he never ever would have said. But let's wait to see when the book comes out. Let's actually read the book first before reviewing it. I mean, it's amazing that to suggest that. Does this mean? Do you think that Adam Schiff will get his wish? Do you think that Bolton will end up testifying? Will he end up talking to the members of the Senate or members of the House managers? Or do you think that it's just kind of bluffing? Democrats would actually be a little afraid of Bolton testifying. Well, I've been saying for a long time, and I'm still saying that the Democrats should be careful what they wish for, because Bolton may not say the things that they think he's going to say. And I also don't think that the Democrats will get him as a witness without the Republicans getting their own witnesses. And the first witness has to be the CIA whistleblower.
Yes.
And once he testifies, we find about this whole conspiracy with Adam Schiff to precipitate this impeachment fraud, with Schiff's staff coaching this whistleblower to put forward this complaint that led to the whole impeachment mess.
Yeah, no, I completely. And I this whole thing, I would love to see not just the individual Vindman who was leaking, but also, Hunter Biden. There could be, maybe they could have a trade. It sounds like some Republican senators might be warming up to that idea, but whether that comes to pass, again, it looks like we got maybe a week left. We'll see as we get going towards that. Fred Fleitz, always appreciate your calm and reasoned insight into these issues, Fred. Let's not go so long without talking again. Appreciate you.